Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we are doing Linux shells. Now, you might ask, how did I get to Linux shells? Because this is not part of the SOC 1 path. Basically, I went through and they have the cybersecurity 101 path that's out right now, cybersecurity 101. And if you check it out, you'll see, hopefully that doesn't close my machine, but you check it out, you'll see here's the cybersecurity 101, and right now they have it set up where you get tickets. It's, if you guys have never played the Tryhackme before, they usually do this once or twice a year, but anyway, you get tickets and you can scratch them off and you win prizes, and it's fun. So I was like, you know what, there's a couple of days, let's try and go through and knock these out so that you guys can get these. But as you can see, part of the problem is I've done almost all of these, so I was like, okay, I gotta find one that I haven't done. So command line Linux shells. I'm much better at Linux than I am at Windows, so I clicked the Linux shells and then thought this was actually a really good box, surprisingly, because I thought, well, I've already done some Linux, all the Linux fundamentals and stuff on my channel, but this box is a little bit different. It kind of incorporates a little bit of all of it, and I really like it. So let's get into it. Let's go ahead and talk about it. But check out the cybersecurity 101 path. I haven't looked at the whole thing, but it seems pretty good. All right. So first off, guys, as we get started, hit that like button, hit that sub button. I know I say it every video, but I really appreciate it, and I really do, actually. It really means a lot to me. The other thing I want you guys to know is on the Patreon video, there's a new video going up every week. I'd check it out. You can subscribe to the Patreon, or you can actually just buy the videos themselves. But this week's video is how to incorporate AI into your note-taking ability, and it's actually really good. So check that out. But let's go ahead and get started. So one of the big things with Linux shells is what people don't understand is exactly what a shell is. And the shells are the shells regardless of Linux or Windows. But so here they have kind of an example, and I think it's a decent example. But so suppose you're in a restaurant and you have two options for food. The first option is to order food from the menu, okay, and the waiter will serve it. Yeah, that makes sense. The second option is to cook your food yourself. In terms of Linux, the kitchen here is the operating system. So that's the back end, the kitchen, that's the kernel. And using the GUI of the OS is just like ordering food from the menu. So you just click, here we go, I want that, right? And the waiter will give it to you. However, using the CLI means you'd have to go into the kitchen and cook your food yourself. In this example, shell would help you cook your desired dish, okay, by giving you some recipe suggestions. So using the CLI to perform operations in the Linux system gives you more power and control. So what does that mean? It means you're cooking your dish, but it's giving you some guidance, right? You can touch the kernel, you can directly interact with the kernel, but it's going to help you, right? And that's the big thing, right? The terminals and the shells and stuff, the big thing is they're what lets you interact with the with the kernel. The kernel is the underlying operating system, the actual system. So for instance, on Windows or something like that with a GUI, right? Or Ubuntu, you can go in, you can see it, you can click buttons, everything's great. But for instance, can you tell it to use your GPU? Now someone's going to just go ahead and tear this apart, but you can't typically tell it to just go, hey, use my GPU to do this, right? You can't typically get that level of granularity on the hardware, right? But yes, there's software that can do it for you. That's what people are going to say. Well, there is GUI software. Yeah, I get it. But with Linux or with any shell, right, you can directly tell it, hey, I want to use the GPU for that processing because it's much more powerful and things like that. Like, you can really interact with the kernel level and with the hardware, and that's what the point of it is, right? That's why people like the shell better. It's more powerful. So what's the facilitator between the user and the operating system? The shell. Now, how do we interact? And I'll go ahead and do this so that we can, there we go, so we can actually read it. Now, we're going to need this password here later, so we'll copy that. Okay, so this is their box that they're going to give us. One thing I'm going to tell you guys is I'm not going to sit there and go through the box and say, like, hey, let's type in PWD and all that. I'm just going to walk you through this, and then you guys can try it out. I recommend, if you've never used Linux, 100% practice this, because this is what people that use Linux all the time, we don't even think about this. This is like us clicking on the mouse. It's just normal for us. So think it through to the point where it's like normal for you. Now, most Linux use the born again shell. This is bash, born again shell, right, as their default shell. Now, I'm going to go through the shells, some of the shells, I should say, and you're going to see why most people use bash, okay? Now, you would have already explored basic Linux commands in the Linux fundamentals, right? That's a prerequisite of this room. So if you haven't, you don't need it personally. I think you could do this room by yourself without it. But so the first thing is pwd, check current working directory. So that'd be like us opening File Explorer on Windows, and you see at the top, it tells you where you're at in the current directory, right? You're in C users, Windows, whatever, right? C users, desktop, whatever. Here, when you just type in pwd, present working directory, you're in home user, right? That's the only thing there we go. Okay, yeah, I don't know what I was saying. So now, however, you can change your directory. So cd, change directory, right, into whatever you want. So here you see we have the working directory. It shows us we're in home user, and then we want to go into the desktop. So cd desktop, right? Now, when you use a GUI, you would just click this, right? File Explorer, you would see desktop folder, you double click it. Some people would say, well, that's way easier. It is, but you can do a lot more with this. It's much more powerful, right? You can, for instance, copy on a GUI, right? And you could sit there and double click it, copy, or right click it, copy, and then you could go find another directory that you want to paste it to. All that stuff's great. I could do that faster on a shell. Now you might say, yeah, I don't know about that. Trust me, I can do it faster. Now, if you're only copying it like to another folder right next to it or something, yeah, you could probably do it faster on a GUI. But if you're copying it to some other folder way over in the directory, I can type that out faster and you can click through all of them. That's one reason people use it, right? Now, while using here, we're going to use ls. ls just lists the directory contents. So this is, hey, we're in desktop. We've changed directories into the desktop. Now let's go ahead and list it. Now, the easiest way to remember these, right, is this is why this is actually print working directory. I always call it present working directory because I remember that it's showing me the present working directory. You can do it whatever. A lot of these are just acronyms that don't really matter. So if you want to say whatever to yourself, it doesn't matter. That's the thing when people teach you, like when you go take a Linux test, right? They're going to say, what is pwd? And you're going to say print working directory, right? Well, if it makes more sense to you to say present working directory or anything else, and that helps you know what it is, just do that. It's going to be way easier for you in the future. Same with cd, it's change directory. If you remember it some other mnemonic way, remember it that way, right? ls, for instance, I don't actually remember the exact name for this, but for me, I just think of list, ls, list, right? And I'm sure it's something like that, but I don't remember the exact acronyms anymore. I used to remember them, but I don't remember them anymore. Now, if you want to read the contents of a file, for instance, cat the file name. I know cat stands for concatenate, but I don't know why they use that instead of just something else. But then you go ahead, and actually I do know why, but I'm not going to dive into it. Either way, I actually think cat's fairly easy to remember, right? But if you have to tell yourself like, hey, to read the file, the cat reads the file, whatever you got to tell yourself, that's fine. Nobody's going to, I'll tell you one thing. If someone came to me and is like, cat stands for whatever, the cat jumped over the book and read the file or whatever, I'm not going to be like, what an idiot, right? Because he knows what it means. He can do it, right? He can use it to read the file. That's all I care about if I'm a user, right? So I know that was kind of a weird tangent because I was just coming up with it off the top of my head, but basically what I'm saying is whatever you need to remember these, remember them that way until you get them to where you're just doing them and you're not thinking about it. So cat, it will read the name of the file. So here the file is filename.txt. This is a sample file. This is the second line of the file. It's a sample text, right? Then you have grep. Grep is a very popular command among Linux users. It is very popular, and I recommend it all the time. It's a powerful search. It can search for any word or pattern inside a file. So you can see here they said grep, thm. So they're grepping for thm in the dictionary.txt file. Now, one thing with grep is by default, the way it's set right here, it will only show that line. So this file, dictionary.txt, might have a million lines in it. They're only going to show the line with what you searched for. So that's one thing. And then you'll see later when you get deeper into Linux, the piping and stuff like that. But grep is very powerful. Now, what is the default shell in most Linux distros? That's bash. Which command utility is used to list the contents? ls. Which command utility helps you search for anything? grep. Now, types of Linux shells. Now, this is where people get into what shell's better and all that. I really could care less. Some people ask me like, what OS is better? What shell's better? I don't give a crap. Use whatever works for you. If you use Windows all day long, PowerShell only, awesome. Good job. Nothing wrong with it. So when you're in Linux, you can type echo shell, and you can see they put the $sign there. That's asking what the variable is, meaning this is set to something. Someone set this, right? And it's set to bin bash by default. So that means, hey, bin bash is the shell that we are currently using, right? And then that's the default shell. And then you can cat the etc shell, and you can see all these different shells that you can switch to if you want to. Now, if you want to switch between shells, you just type it, right? So you type Z shell, you type tmux, you type whatever, dash, anything you want. So if you want to change it the default, so instead of the echo shell, you can change it right here, change shell, user bin Z shell in that case, right? So now the born again shell, this is the reason people use this the majority of the time, because I get that question every now and then. It's not super common, but I get it now and then. Is why not use something like Z shell or something else? I will tell you, I've used Z shell many times years ago. I don't see it as widely distributed anymore, and that's nothing against it. I think it's still probably in use quite a bit. I just am not like a sysad anymore, so I don't see it as often. But years and years ago, I used to see Z shell on a lot of machines, especially Oracle systems and things like that. But now bash is very commonly the default shell for most Linux distros. So that's why most people use it, because it's default. So yeah, can you switch to Z shell and get used to it? Sure, you absolutely can. And if you like it, go for it. But keep in mind, especially as a pen tester, you're going to be on a lot of Linux machines that aren't yours. What that means is it's not going to be set the way you want it. So that means, hey, probably should know the default, right? And that's why bash is so important, because if you write all your tools in bash and everything else, it's going to work on the majority of systems. Now, one of the things bash offers is tab completion. You guys have seen this probably hundreds of times. When you're typing and you hit tab, it will complete the word for you, or the task, or the file for you. That's really nice, because it also lets you check to make sure you did it correctly, because I'll type it out and leave like a couple characters and hit tab to make sure it exists. That lets me know that, right? Bash keeps a history file. That's also really nice. You can type history. It'll show all those commands, right? Now you have fish, friendly interactive shell. This is different. This is much simpler, right? Sorry guys, I keep having to swallow because I'm sick, but it offers a very simple syntax, which means it's very user friendly. It has auto spell correction, which is nice. So if you mistype something, it will auto correct it. You can customize the command prompt, making it really cool using themes and things like that. The syntax highlighting feature of the fish colors different parts of the command, so you can tell, like, hey, this is the command, this is the actual arguments, this is the file, whatever. It'll color code them for you. Fish also provides scripting, tab completion, and command history functionality like other shells. Now, Z shell, again, not installed by default by most Linux distros, but I have used it quite a bit. Is considered a modern shell that combines functionality and some of the previous shells, right? So Z shell provides advanced tab completion, just like we talked about with bash, also capable of writing scripts, also provides auto spell correction like fish, so it kind of combines them, offers extensive customization that may make it slower than other shells. Keep that in mind. It also provides tab completion, command history, and stuff like that. So keep in mind, every shell has a purpose, right? For instance, Z shell might be nice for lightweight utilities because it kind of provides that user availability, that kind of nice functionality, but it's slower than other shells, meaning you probably don't want it on extensive systems, right? So you can see here, they have bash, fish, and Z shell. Scripting, tab completion, customization, user-friendly, all that stuff, right? It tells you, you can read this chart if you want, and it tells you which one does what. But keep in mind, a shell is just a vehicle to talk to the kernel. So you can use whatever shell you like. But again, bash is default, so that's why it's used a lot. Because if it's default, what does that mean? It's going to be on every system that, not every, but most systems that you take over as a pen tester. So which shell comes with syntax highlighting? That's fish. It came right here, syntax highlighting. Built into this shell, that's fish. Which shell does not have autocorrect? Bash. I know it doesn't have autocorrect, right? Because I misspell stuff all the time. Which command displays all the previously executed commands? That's history. So if you type history on most shells, it will give you all the commands that have been executed in that shell. Okay, now shell scripting and components. First things first. They're typing nano, first script.sh, they're building their first script, right? The first thing is you have to start a script with a shebang. If you don't know what a shebang is, A shebang is just the hashtag exclamation point, right? Hashtag exclamation point. That's a shebang. I don't know why it's called that. That's one of the few things I actually don't know why it's called. I've never looked it up. I've never cared. But it's called a shebang. And so what you do is you have to put that in there and then tell it you want bin bash, or you can put, Z shell or whatever you want. But you have to tell it what you want it to read. The reason you do this is so that it knows as soon as that starts up how to read that, right? Because otherwise it's not going to know what to execute or how to, because what if it's opening in Z shell, but you're running bash script, right? It's not going to understand everything. So now variables. What is a variable? Well, a variable is just a stored, it's something you store. So here they're saying, hey, what's your name? And they're asking it, read name. What's going to happen is it's going to pop up, say, hey, what's your name? And you're going to type in, right? You're going to say, hey, Stuffy. Well, it's going to save that as a variable called name. So now anytime you ask for it by saying $name, it's going to say Stuffy anytime you ask for it. So now you say welcome name. And when you say that, it's going to say welcome Stuffy, right? Whatever you type. So you can say, boom, welcome name, right? Variables are very important in scripting. If you don't fully understand them, make sure you kind of do some digging on them. All they are ways to store contents that you may need later in the script. Now, change mod plus X, that means you're changing the permissions on the script to add execution. Plus X is execution. So you need to make sure that you change that because otherwise you won't be able to execute it. Now, you just do $/, $/, and that will allow you to execute it. Now, it may seem like I'm going through this fast, but this comes with repetition. This comes with you just spending time learning Linux, doing this enough times. But you can go back through and use this as a reference, take notes, all kinds of things, right? And you can see the $/, variable, that is allowing you to execute it. And then it says, hey, what's your name? And they type John. When they did that, it says, hey, welcome, John, right? That is the variable. The variable was stored right here as name, and then it was called upon right here as name. And when they did that, boom, prints it out. If you put Stuffy here, it would print out Stuffy here. Now, loops. Loops are pretty self-explanatory, but what they are is they loop through until it's completed or until you tell it to stop. So here it says for. This is a for loop. For I, you can put anything you want here. This is the variable right here. In 1 through 10, so this is just 1 through 10, 1.10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do this. So for this, do this, right? And what is it going to do? It's going to echo or print out I. Well, remember, we stored them as a variable. So it's going to go through each one. 1, echo, 2, echo, 3, echo, 4, echo, etc., etc. And it's going to do that until it gets to 10. So now you see, here's what it looks like when you execute it. 1, 2, 3, and it's going to go all the way to 10. Now, that's a loop. That's a for loop, right? So it's just going to keep looping through until it's completed, until it got through 10. It's going to do the same thing on every single one of them. Those are really important because there's going to be a lot of times where, like, a good example as I've done on the channel is we did a packet capture. I think I did it on the channel, maybe on the Patreon, but we did a packet capture where we took packet capture files and we used a for loop to go through all of them and tell us where certain I could search for an IP in like 50 packet capture files, right? So that way I didn't have to try and find it in there. So if I thought something was malicious, I could search for that IP in there, right? You can search for anything in there, but that's one of the use cases for a for loop. So now here, conditional statements. So conditional statement is, hey, we're going to do something, but only if something is true. So what that means is, or if I say true, but you'll see what I mean. So echo, please enter your name. Here they entered the name. If your name, and you remember that variable, they're calling on that variable. So if your name is equal to Stuart, then echo, hey, Stuart, here's your secret. Else, meaning if it's anything else other than Stuart, say, sorry, you're not allowed to authorize it, right? And then this IFI backwards, it's just if backwards. That just ends the if else statement. So that just says, if this, do this, else do this, end. That's all it's saying. Now, here when they run it, please enter your first name or your name first. And it says, Stuart, welcome, Stuart. Here's the secret. Here's what it looks like if they enter it and they aren't Stuart. Alex, sorry, you're not Alex, right? Now, one of the biggest problems I see with people, including myself, I'm terrible at this, is I do not put enough comments in my scripts. And I've tried to get really better, or a lot better at that. One thing I do a lot of times is I will make a script and I will put it into ChatGPT and ask it to put comments for me about what each one's doing. And the reason I do that is because I'm terrible at making comments, meaning I just don't do it when I'm scripting because I know what's going on. But keep in mind, a lot of your scripts are going to be used by other people, or you might run through them and you might not use it for 6 months. And then you come back, you're like, oh crap, what was I thinking? I can't remember, right? So one of the things to do is you put a comment. That hashtag right there, that makes it a comment, meaning this won't run. There's no code here. There's nothing. You're just telling it what to do, or you're just telling it a description of what's about to happen. So that way, if someone else opens this or you open this way down the road or something, you know exactly what each piece is doing. You don't have to try and relearn the script. So here you say, please enter your name first, and you can see the comment says, ask the user to enter a value. Okay. Then storing the user's value, right? So now if you come in here, you don't have to go, okay, echo, read, what am I doing, right? You can just say, okay, they're asking them to store it. They're storing it here, checking if the name is equal to, right? Because some of those functions get really long, and so you want those comments to really kind of explain it for you. So comments make it much easier for everybody. So I recommend comment, comment, comment. I'm a big believer in over-commenting your files or your scripts. Some people will argue that makes it look messy and all that. I really don't care. I would much rather someone put too much information and I have to read it, and then someone put not enough. Now, that's not to say if you put a crap load of information, it might be frustrating, but in my opinion, that's still better than no information. I'm trying to re-engineer your script. Now, what's the shebang? Bin bash right there with the hashtag and exclamation point. Which command gives you execute permissions? We talked about that. Change mod plus X, which is plus executable. Which scripting functionality helps us configure iterative tasks, meaning repeatable tasks. And those are loops. Now, this is a fun one. The locker script. This is a good example. They kind of just show you. So a user has a locker in a bank. Okay. To secure the locker, we have to have a script in place that verifies the user before opening it. Right? Well, here's what the script's looking for. Username John, company name Tryhackme, and PIN is 7385. So here is the actual script, right? Define the variables. Username, company name, PIN. Those are the 3 things we need. You can see the variables are blank, meaning they don't have anything in there right now. Well, that's because we're going to ask them for them, right? Now it says for I in 1 through 3, do this. So it's going to run through 1, 2, and 3. It's going to say if I equals 1, so that's the first part of the loop, 1, then enter your username, and then that's where you put your username, and it's going to read that, meaning it's going to take that and store it right here as username. Then else if, right, if it equals 2, because we're running through the for loop, so now you're into 2, it's going to say enter your company name, and you're going to say, hey, my company name is, I think it's looking for Tryhackme. Yep, Tryhackme. All right, and then the last thing, enter your PIN, and then the PIN's going to say whatever, 7385 or whatever it was. That's what they're looking for, right? Now they're checking if the user has the correct details. So if username equals John, we get past the first check, and then you notice there's 2 ands. That means and, not or, and the company name equals Tryhackme, meaning both are correct. Then check, and it'll say and then the PIN has to be 7385. If all of those are true, meaning all of them are exactly what they're looking for, then echo, authentication successful, you can now access your locker. Otherwise, anything else gets, whether one of them's wrong, anything, you get authentication denied. Now, when they run the script, you can see locker script, enter your username, John, enter your company name, Tryhackme, enter your PIN. You notice the PIN is wrong, so authentication denied. So you have to have all of them right. So what would be the correct PIN to authenticate? 7385. All right, let's get into our practical exercise. So our practical exercise, they say here you should change sudo su, which means change to root. Su stands for switch user, by the way. So I remember when I learned Linux long time ago when I started, I knew sudo su would always change me to root, but I never knew why. It's because switch user is just the what you're actually doing, and you're telling it root switch user, so you're switching to root, right? So one thing it's saying is you need these details in here, right? So what we'll do, okay, so we're in Linux right here. Okay, thank you. We're in Linux here. We type ls, and you can see we have flag hunt. So we're going to say nano flag hunt, and we can see that we have a script here, and it's telling us here that the script is missing some things. We have to change it. And what we have to do is we have to get this script to search for specific keywords to tell us where those files are. Well, you can see they give us the directory, which is var log. Well, if we look here, the directory is empty. So first thing we got to do is do var log, right? Because the directory is empty. Make sure you hit delete to get rid of that space in there. Now the flag is Tryhackme flag 01 script. Let's see if it'll actually let me paste it because I didn't allow. Probably won't. Nope, it won't. That's all right. So it was Tryhackme. Was it capital F? Tryhackme flag 01 script, all lowercase. Flag 01 script. All right, and then delete, get that space out of there. Flag 01 script, make sure it's right. Boom. Okay, so now we have the var log, which is the directory we want to search through. We have the flag, which is the flag we're looking for. So now let's break down the actual script. So it's going to say flag search in directory, directory in progress. And you notice they have a $sign here. So it's going to tell us it's going to be searching in var log. Okay. Now, keep in mind, they said it's going to search in the log files. So that's what we want, right? So you can see defining for loop to iterate over all the files with the .log extension. Well, we're missing something here. So it says for files. So we're doing a for loop, for file in, but we don't have anything here. So we need to say in, whoops, if I can see the dang keyboard, there we go, in directory, because we need to call on this directory, right? We want that directory to be there. So in var log, right, search for asterisk, meaning, or the asterisk means wildcard, so that means anything with .log, do this. And what they're going to do is check grep flag, right? And the flag's right here. Tryhackme flag script. So they're going to check each var log for that flag in the file, then echo flag found in whatever file it is, right? So pretty simple script. Now we can exit, Control X, yes to save, enter to file or to write it to the right file. Now we'll say sudo su, because if you remember, we need to go there. And I saved that password earlier, but I forgot it. So it's user@Tryhackme. So user@Tryhackme. Oh, it said password was wrong. What did I mess up? Tryhackme with a capital T. User@Tryhackme. There we go. Now we're root. We say ls. You see it's there. Flag hunt.sh. Now, because we fixed their script and we saved it, when we run it, you can see it says flag found in authentication.log. So now, when we go to the conclusion or the practical exercise, you can see what file has the keyword authentication.log. Well, now, in order to find whatever where the cat sleeps? Yeah, where's the cat sleeping? You say cat, get it? Where's the cat sleep? And you say var log, because we know that's where it's at. And then we know it's in the authentication.log file. And then you can see there's the flag, and it says the cat is sleeping under the table. So where's the cat sleep? Under the table. Pretty simple stuff. But for those of you that are new to Linux, this might seem daunting, but this is actually a really good intro onto how you can go from just learning basic Linux commands to actually start writing scripts, to then you're searching for files with those scripts. You're really diving in. And so this is a really good one. I think this is a fun one, and then you'll get tickets for this one as well. So I'm going to upload as many of the ticket ones as I can in the next couple of days, so that way you guys can try and knock them out. But there was a lot of them. I don't think I'm going to get through all of them in 5 days, I'll tell you that. I don't know how many I've done already in the past, so I can't get tickets on the ones I've already done. So it is what it is, but let me know what you guys think. If you guys like this content, please hit that like button, guys. It helps out so much. But more importantly, subscribe. Subscribe is the best thing you can do. So thank you guys, and hope you guys have a great day.